An assassin's ideology is simple. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. But only a few assassins ever grasp the true wisdom hidden behind these words. Others, they question it, misunderstand it, or worse, turn their backs on it entirely. And while names like Shay and Al-Mualim might come to mind, trust me, they're just the tip of the iceberg. Because throughout Assassin's Creed history, countless assassins have betrayed the Brotherhood in one way or another. The hows, the whys, and the whens. We're diving into all of it. And by the end, you'll be left wondering, when did all of this even happen? If we're talking about traitors, we have to start with the original, Al-Mualim. As the mentor of the Levantine Brotherhood, he was the ultimate authority figure. If you played the first game, you know the thing. He's kinda like that one strict boss who catches Altair breaking the rules, strips him of his rank, and sends him on a redemption arc spanning the entire game to assassinate 9 high-ranking Templars. On the surface, it looks like a righteous crusade to protect the innocent. But behind the scenes, Al-Mualim's plan is beautifully, shamelessly selfish. He wasn't trying to save the Holy Land, he was cleaning up his own loose ends. Those 9 Templars Altair hunts down, they were secretly his business partners. Al-Mualim had been working with the Templars all along to locate the Apple of Eden, and when it came time to claim it, he simply decided he didn't want to share. Suddenly, the entire game flips. This isn't a holy war anymore. It's a corrupt boss using his best assassin to eliminate the rest of his pals so he can take the prize for himself. And the hypocrisy is staggering. This is a man who spent his life preaching the ideology of free will, and the moment he finally gets the apple, he enslaves the mind of everyone in his fortress, and he didn't just betray Altair, he proved that from day one the Brotherhood itself was flawed. So much so that even the man enforcing the rules was ready to throw them away the instant absolute power landed in his hand. While Al-Mualim betrayed the Brotherhood for absolute godlike power, our next guy sold them out for something much simpler, a fat paycheck. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Duncan Walpole. This guy was a highly respected master assassin in the British Brotherhood as he had the rank, the skills, and the trust of his mentors. But apparently the guy hated his job of killing, most probably because it didn't pay much. He looked around and decided that the whole work in the dark to serve the light routine was overrated, and looked for an easy way out: retirement. He then packed up highly classified assassin maps, stole a priceless vial of sage blood, and booked a one-way ticket to Havana. His plan was to walk right up to the Templar Grandmaster and sell out his entire organization. But this was where Duncan's grand betrayal turns into an absolute joke. He never even made it to the meeting. His ship goes down in a storm, he washes up on a beach, and almost immediately gets stabbed by a random pirate named Edward Kenway. Now, Edward gave zero fucks about ancient secret societies or their war. He just saw a dead guy with a fancy suit and a delivery that paid well. So, my guy did what anyone would do in his place. He literally stripped Duncan's corpse, stole his identity, and confidently walked right into the Templar headquarters pretending to be him. The ultimate irony here is beautiful. Duncan tried to orchestrate this massive, greedy betrayal to ruin the assassins, but all he really accomplished was acting as the world's worst delivery man. He accidentally armed and funded Edward Kenway, the exact pirate who would eventually go on to save the very Brotherhood that Duncan was trying to destroy. If Duncan Walpole was driven by greed, our next traitor was the complete opposite. Pierre Belleck didn't care about money or power, he cared too much about the rules. Belleck was a veteran master assassin during the French Revolution, as hardcore as they come. He trained Arnaud Dorian and lived and breathed the Assassin's Creed. But everything changed when Mirabeau, leader of the French Brotherhood, attempted the unthinkable: a peaceful truce with the Templars. To Mirabeau, it was a logical step to stop the bloodshed tearing Paris apart. To Belleck, it was unforgivable. Now, most people in his place would argue or maybe even resign, but Belleck, my boy, poisoned his own leader's wine. And the scariest part, he didn't see himself as a traitor. He wasn't working with the Templars, he despised them. In his mind, he was the only one strong enough to save the Brotherhood from going soft. So obsessed with tradition that he crossed a line he could never come back from, forcing his own student to face him in a fight to the death. Belleck wasn't just a traitor, he was a fanatic, an extremist. But his actions raise an uncomfortable question. What happens when the Brotherhood itself is wrong? And, well, that brings us to our next guy. Up until this point, the traitors we've talked about were either selfish, greedy, or just incredibly paranoid. But our fourth guy, Walid Cheltradat, introduces a very uncomfortable question to the video. What happens when the Brotherhood is actually in the wrong? Vali was a respected nobleman and a highly dedicated assassin, but his homeland had been absolutely devastated, conquered, and humiliated by the Ottoman Empire. So imagine his surprise when his supposed brother in arms, the people who literally swear an oath to fight for freedom, decide to make a friendly political alliance with the exact same empire that destroyed his home. Vali felt completely betrayed by his own family, and honestly, you can kind of see his point. He didn't leave the Brotherhood because he wanted something in return, he left because the assassins abandoned him for political convenience. He then ended up joining the Byzantine Templars to get revenge. And here's the real deal. The Templars didn't have to brainwash him, and they didn't have to trick him. They just offered him the justice that the assassins denied him. So in a way, Vali is the first traitor on the list who makes you pause and realize that maybe, just maybe, the Templar ideology starts looking pretty appealing when the assassins are the ones turning their backs on the innocent. Abbas Sufyan is arguably the most universally hated character in the franchise's lore, and for a very good reason. He didn't defect to the Templars to save the world, and he didn't have some grand point to make. He was just incredibly, unhealthily petty. Abbas and Altair actually grew up together, but Abbas spent his entire life boiling with resentment over Altair's success and talent. He couldn't stand being in his shadow. So what was his master plan? He waited like a coward until Altair left on a years-long mission to Mongolia, and then he orchestrated a massive coup. But he didn't just take over the Levantine Brotherhood. To hurt his rival as much as humanly possible, he ordered the execution of his own son, Seth. After taking power, he didn't even run the Brotherhood well. He spent the next few decades driving the entire organization into the dirt, consumed by paranoia and corruption, until Altair finally returned as an old man to reclaim it. He's unique on this list because he didn't leave to join the enemy, he stayed right where he was and destroyed the assassins from the inside out, by completely abandoning the creed simply because he couldn't handle being second best. Now, moving away from the historical betrayals, we have to talk about the modern day. If you played the original games, this one physically will hurt. For 3 entire games, Lucy is your best bet. She saves Desmond from Abstergo, she busts him out, she sets up the secret hideouts, and she's basically the glue holding the modern assassins together. We spent 3 hours in those games talking to her, trusting her, and rooting for her. But here's the harsh truth. She was a Templar double agent the entire time. Now, it wasn't for a giant bag of cash like Duncan, and she wasn't crazy like Balek. It was just because she was exhausted. Now, think about it. Being a modern day assassin is miserable. You live out of vans and abandoned warehouses, and you're constantly looking over your shoulder and you're badly losing the war. When she was deep undercover at Abstergo, Warren Vidic, the guy we all thought was just a cartoonish bad guy, basically broke her down. He must have showed her that Abstergo actually had structure, safety, and resources, and he convinced her that the Templars were building a peaceful world, while the assassins were just dragging out an endless fight in the dirt. So she didn't snap, she just wanted the war to stop, and she decided the Templars were the only ones who could actually pull it off. Her grand plan to steal the Apple of Eden and hand it right back to Abstergo was flawless. Well, flawless right up until an ancient alien ghost possessed Desmond and forced him to stab her. Which, yeah, is a pretty wild way to end that storyline, but Lucy's betrayal really cements that uncomfortable idea we talked about with Vali. Sometimes people don't betray the Brotherhood because they're evil, sometimes they just realize they might be fighting for the wrong side. This guy didn't just hurt a team, he basically destroyed the entire modern assassin brotherhood single-handedly. Now, if you only played the modern games, you might not know Daniel Cross very well, but you have absolutely felt the impact of what he did. They thought he was their golden boy, one with a strong assassin bloodline. They spent years helping him, training him, and trusting him. They trusted him so much in fact that they decided to bring him to their most heavily guarded secret base to meet the mentor. The guy who basically runs the entire global assassin brotherhood. But here's the devastating twist. Daniel was a sleeper agent. When he was a kid, Abstergo kidnapped him and completely brainwashed him. They planted a hidden command deep in his mind, and the trigger to activate the command was simply meeting the assassin mentor. So the second the assassins proudly introduced their new hero to their top boss, Daniel's secret programming kicks in. He pulls out a hidden blade, kills the mentor on the spot, and escapes right back to the Templars. And that wasn't even the worst part. When he went back to Abstergo, he gave them the locations of assassin camps all around the world. And this began what the lore calls the Great Purge. Abstergo sent strike teams everywhere and basically wiped out the assassins off the map globally. And this is why whenever you play the modern day sections of Assassin's Creed, you see them hiding in vans, abandoned warehouses, or caves. Why? All because of Daniel Cross. It's an incredibly tragic story because it wasn't even his fault. He couldn't control his own mind, but his betrayal easily caused the most physical damage to the Brotherhood in history. This next traitor lost control of his mind for a much wilder reason. He remembered he used to be an ancient god. And yes, we're talking about Assassin's Creed Mirage's protagonist, Basim ibn Ishaq. For a long time, he was considered the perfect hidden one, meaning he could take on almost anyone flawlessly. He was deeply dedicated to the cause, highly lethal, and a solid mentor to his apprentice, Hytham. But then the sci-fi part of Assassin's Creed starts to kick in. Basim slowly starts to realize that he is the reincarnation of Loki. But what makes Basim's betrayal so unique is that it's almost like a horror movie. His original personality was completely hijacked and erased. The memories of Loki took the wheel. He ended up turning on his closest ally, Eivor, abandoned his own apprentice, and completely dropped the Brotherhood's mission. Why? Because Loki had a thousands of years old beef to settle, and the Assassin Brotherhood was simply getting in his way. It's a crazy twist because the guy who technically betrayed the Hidden Ones wasn't even really Basim anymore. But as wild as this is, it still doesn't compare to our final traitor, the guy who actually makes us ask if betraying the Brotherhood was the right thing to do. Every person on this list betrayed the Brotherhood for a specific reason. We've seen greed, jealousy, fanaticism, and even mind control. But our final guy, Shay Cormac, is completely different. He isn't a full-blown traitor because he does what he thinks is the right thing to do. In Assassin's Creed Rogue, Shay starts out as a dedicated young assassin. His mentor Achilles sends him to Lisbon to grab an ancient Isu artifact from a hidden temple. At this point, things are pretty comfortable. Shay goes in, touches the artifact, and then things start to f up. He accidentally triggers a massive earthquake that completely levels the entire city of Lisbon, and approximately 75,000 innocent people die right in front of him. Now, usually in these games, you're the hero stopping the apocalypse, but Shay had to watch in horror as he realized the assassins were the apocalypse. They were blindly messing with ancient technology they didn't understand, and a whole city paid the price. Traumatized, Shay runs back to America and begs Achilles to stop hunting for these temples before they accidentally destroy the entire world. And Achilles basically tells him to calm down and follow orders. So Shay, being Shay, makes a choice. He breaks into the assassin headquarters, steals the book that leads to the other temples, and runs. His own brothers hunt him down and shoot him off a cliff, leaving him for dead. But Shay survives, and this is where the massive twist happens. He doesn't just hide, he actively joins the Templars, and the craziest part, the Templars don't trick him or brainwash him. They actually agree with him, they take him in and help him hunt down his former mentors one by one, so that he could simply stop the assassins from blindly breaking the planet. Shay looked at the assassin's ideal of freedom and realized that without boundaries, it was just a free pass for reckless chaos. And he's the only traitor who left to protect the innocent from the good guys. And that brings us to the ultimate question. After looking at what the Brotherhood actually did, let me know in the comments, did Shay actually make the right choice? Because we think he absolutely did, because the Colonial Brotherhood was really messed up. With that being said, the video comes to an end. Let me know which assassin's betrayal shook you the most, and do you agree with their reasons? And if you like this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and also subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care and goodbye.